Welcome to the Let's Be Real podcast. I'm your host, Leroy Tau, and this podcast is all about exploring life issues from a real point of view, an honest, real point of view, where we explore the issues of love, life, and everything in between. Today, I have the privilege and the honor of having a brother, a friend, a guest to some of you, a brother and a friend to some of you, Advocate Kgosi Mello. How are you, my good sir?
I'm good, brother.
Are you well?
Yeah, thank you for
I see
welcome.
you showed up in your full legal regalia.
Yeah, look, essentially smart formal, you know. So, yeah.
This man has helped me with two critical cases.
That's an honor.
So when this particular topic came up, and I was like, there is no other individual that I would rather have than somebody not only that you know they are good from a legal point of view, but they have represented you and you won.
Yeah, no,
I won both cases. We'll go into detail about what they were. Yeah. But for those who don't know you, can you briefly just introduce yourself?
Okay, so my name is Advocate Kgosi Mello. So I've been in the legal profession, I think approximately 12 years now. Practicing as an advocate, essentially in the field of family law. I also do a bit of criminal law, commercial. I also do labor law as well, and some area of cases there and there. Yeah, and I practice here in Pretoria. Yeah.
So do you specialize in all of those, or you have what's your specialty or your love?
I specialize in money. So essentially I've done all of these courses in varsity. And when I started doing my articles, I practice in most of these things. So I'm versatile. I'm learned in all of these fields. So if and when a client comes and say they need assistance and they can be able to pay, I'm there, so I'm going to represent them.
The bottom line is the money.
The bottom line is the
But
bread.
they can be confident that they'll be properly represented.
Definitely.
Regardless of which category they choose to consult for.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah.
Look, man, I don't like beating around the bush, so I just want us to get to the heart of the matter.
Yeah.
We just celebrated Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day to you too, sir.
Not so long ago.
Yeah.
And as you know, social media is always a buzz. When Father's Day, and unfortunately not for the right reasons. But sitting back, looking from the outside in, the inside out, I think I've realized that we have a pandemic, absent fathers. And there are, even though we talk about the absenteeism that much, but we rarely look at the dynamics that contribute to the overall reason why fathers wouldn't be absent. So I don't want us to talk about the ones that don't want to be there, even though they were given a chance to be there. I want us to talk about the great percentage of men that want to be there, but because of legal issues, cultural issues, they were deterred to do so. So maybe we need to break down first what family law entails, what family law is about, before we get to how it affects men or how men are affected by the concept. So probably maybe let's just break down the concept of family law and what it entails.
Yeah, look, family law basically it's very broad. I mean, it encompasses issues like your domestic violence. If you see people taking each other to the domestic violence court, it encompasses that. So that's part of the family law. And then you have the children's court. So that's where what we are talking about now, where people go there for custody. They go there to try and have access to their kids. And then you have the maintenance court, both of which are in the magistrate court. Maintenance court is where people take mothers most of the time because they are the ones that are staying with the kids. They take the fathers for legal support, and then you have your divorces as well. So family law covers essentially all of those. And then you have issues like adoption as well. that forms part of that. So in terms of maybe if you're looking at the acts that would govern family law, you would have the Domestic Violence Act, you would have the Divorce Act, you'll have the Children's Act, and then Maintenance Act.
Yeah. So maybe let's zoom into the aspect of parenting, where the law is concerned. As I mentioned, we just recently celebrated Father's Day.
Yeah.
And you have mixed emotions every time Father's Day comes around.
Yeah, definitely.
You have posts that are degrading and demeaning to men. And mostly they come from people who have either enabled or contributed to the scourge that we are currently experiencing. So now I think from my experience, I've learned that you have culture and then you have the law.
Yeah.
So now you have a guy that impregnated a woman.
Yeah.
And then because the guy couldn't afford to pay damages from a cultural point of view, now they can show up, be present for the child or come to see the child until they feel they meet the obligation, damage. And then now, whether it was 6,000 or 10,000, I think it differs from situation or circumstance to circumstance or culture to culture. So now, what does the law say to that guy in terms of how does the law protect the individual in terms of making sure that they still maintain the ability to have access to the child? Because before you know it, a week turns into 2 weeks, 2 weeks turns into a month into 3 months. Before you know it, it's been 3 years since you have not showed up to see the child. Because now, because of this cultural dynamic, because mangwana usal under the care or the structure of the family or the mother or the father, or it really doesn't matter. But you find already now, because damage, now you can have access to the child. How does the law protect the man in that particular situation?
Yeah, look, essentially when it comes to customary law, so I regard them as common law. So common law would be laws that are not codified, but they are common to men, right? But you not paying damages does not preclude you legally from having access to your children, right? In a way, so what you have to do is you have to take the mother, obviously, to the locale, the court where the child will be residing. So if the child is staying in Soshangube with the parents, then you have to take the mother there to the children's court in Soshangube for you to be able to get access, right? But when it comes to you paying damages, as much as it doesn't play a role, but what it does is if, for example, as a father, you want maybe to have primary residence of the children, and then you present that to the court to say, look, I haven't paid damages to have access to this child in terms of tradition. What it does is then support your application as to say, this is the kind of person I am, this is the kind of father I am. I even go to the length of complying with the traditions of these people, as much as it's not a legal requirement, but a custom requirement for such a thing to be done. So essentially, my answer to the question would be that you have to go to the children's court, take the people to the children's court for you to have access to the child. Because what the court always looks at when it comes to children matters is the best interest of the child, right? Yeah. The best interest of the child is to have both parents available in the child's life, especially if the father is willing. So it'll be in the best interest of the child for the father to do that. Yeah.
So you are saying legally a man would have a leg to stand on, whether they can afford or can't afford. The idea is the willingness to be there.
Yes.
So are we doing enough? Is the law doing enough in terms of educating people about the laws that govern not only the country but govern how we deal with one another? Is is it the legal fraternity's responsibility to educate, or is it the individual's responsibility to educate themselves? Because now I'm thinking there's a guy that has not seen their child, because you must understand immediately when you have communication breakdown, because we probably did not agree or I didn't show up in terms of literally either and then damage and then automatically communication breakdown between either two families or between the man and the woman involved in creating the child. So because I don't think we men understand the legal protection they have from a legal point of view. How can we best get men to understand this is how much you are protected, and this is your responsibility in making sure that you qualify for the protection. Should you qualify, or is it readily available? Or because there's a guy listening to us thinking to themselves, or I honestly want to be in the child's life, but understanding the ego makeup of a man, understanding the overall makeup of what a man prides himself in his ability to provide and but if you feel incapacitated, or if you feel you are not man enough, so and then people will use the inability to provide as a weapon to keep you away from the child. Now in that particular instance, what is the law? I know you answered, but I think let's just encapsulate everything so that it drives the point home properly.
Look, essentially, if you look at this whole thing of having kids, there is this ideology or belief in black culture that says that right?
Yes, there's that as well.
If we break up, so the child belongs to the mother, and I think what we have to do, we live in a time where information is readily available everywhere, right? So, but it can't be that it's only women, for example, that are filling up the churches. It can't be that it's only women that are filling up the maintenance courts, that are filling up the children's courts. Where do they get the information from, right? So we have to be willing to educate ourselves, do whatever it takes to be in our children's life, because the law is there. There's no such a thing that the law supports women more than it supports men. It's just women go to court more, right?
Yeah, but to play devil's advocate, it's the same thing that if I slap a woman and she goes and opens a case, is taken seriously. As opposed if she slaps me and I go to. So I think there's something that needs to be done in terms of empowering. Yes, it's my responsibility to know what my rights are from a legal point of view, but I think maybe we need to educate one another from, especially maybe when you have boys, and that's a conversation that I would like us to talk about later on, to say, how then do you give your sons the necessary tools from a legal point of view? Because especially living in South Africa now, I think having information on how to love and knowing how to love is not enough if you don't know the legalities. We have come to a place where you can't just fall in love without understanding the legalities of being with this particular individual. But I think we can do more in terms of educating men about their rights from a legal point of view. And I think they have a right to feel the way they feel, to feel or the law doesn't protect us, or the law doesn't take us serious. Because how many times will they take you serious if what's and at what point are you as a father in a position to take mangwana for maintenance?
Look, like I said again, it has to come from you to have the willingness to try and learn. Because I remember I tried there's this events that I was doing with you as well, where we are having these conversations with men, but you find that only a few people come, right? I think we're calling what men's conferences, right?
The real men's conference.
Yes. So because the idea was that, as brothers, we need to be together to have this conversation, to educate each other. I was also there to try and talk about law, like what we are doing now, because the government as well. I mean, if you look at the Department of Justice, they have this imbizos, I think that's what they call them, where they go to different areas to try and educate people about these things, right? And like what we're talking about now, which is great, is us also extending a hand to say, guys, we as men, we are very important in our children's life. Here's the information on how you as a father, despite what is happening in your life, despite what you paid and what you haven't paid, you can still have access to your child, because you can tell in a community, wherever you go to, you can tell the difference between a child whose father was present and a child whose father was not present. I'm not saying all the children where the fathers were not present,
they turn out to be
but there is an effect. In most cases, having a father present in your life, you turn out great.
Yeah. So that so to wrap up that particular thing would be yes, even though there are legal protections and then the law does protect men to a certain degree or to a particular degree, there is a responsibility that is needed from the man himself to pull his socks up, to have the willingness to want to be there for their child. And not to use culture as an excuse, and not to use affordability or means to afford as an excuse. You are saying that a man can literally wake up tomorrow and go to children's court and plead their case and say, I see because I got a child daddy pampas, and the law will protect them. That's what you are saying.
That's what I'm saying. And essentially as well, guys, as much as I'm not a fan of these practices that are happening culturally that are precluding us from having access. But also you must understand the reasons behind these practices being there is not to prohibit you from having access to your child, but it's to you to get close to that family, to know the family, because you're not going to be the only one raising the child. Mind you, you're not staying with the child. The child is staying with the grandparents. You paying the damages is to say, look, I'm not getting married to your daughter, but I still want to get close to the family. I still want to have access to come inside your house and actually see my child.
Because you obtained a court order doesn't mean now you can show up with disrespect and
So what is going to happen? You can get your court order, but then you'll have situations where they say now you must start picking up your child at McDonald's instead of you going to the home, and all of those kind of stuff. So it's that the practice is a matter of respect. You're respecting
and
the man's family.
And
as an African, is something that you should understand. And also as a guy as well, one of the things that I want to advocate is that having a child, it's an expensive practice. Make sure you have money to be able to support this thing. Like those things that we're talking about, those customs, have money to be able, because it's something that you know. As a black person, there's no there's no black person that doesn't know there's a thing called damages. These are things that you should be thinking about when you are sleeping with this woman. That responsibility to say, pampasia duro. It doesn't matter where you buy it. It has.
So I think this is a wake up call. I mean, to us sitting on this table to do better. To go back and reconcile with those that we need to reconcile to for the sake of the child.
Definitely.
And I think maybe sometimes is to put away how you feel about the mother and how whether they cheated or they treated you badly or they called you names. I think. The greater, be a bigger man. I think that's what calls for manhood, to say, even though you are not wrong, you need to suck it up sometimes so that you can have a relationship and access to your child. And I think myself included, there's no excuse. We need to do better and we need to do right. And I think maybe one last thing I need us to touch on is, so you have a guy that's married, and has and how negotiation.
Yeah.
We touched on this briefly before we went on air.
Yeah.
But o patella mosadi mahadi, and then bare o ntshetsa ngwana ke nama o hapale na madi.
Yes.
So I think briefly so now here's a scenario. I'm married to this person, they have a child.
Yeah.
And then kimutsetsa mahadi ka ntshetsa le ngwana mahadi. So customarily I married the child as well.
Yeah.
So from a customary point of view, you would think that the child should adopt my surname.
Yeah.
But it's not like that, because the father still has parental rights to the child. So this person has a father, absent or present. It honestly doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Because even if the man is absent, they can show up 20 years later to exercise their parental rights. The drama will unfold. But the reality of the matter is, and then now the mother dies. What is the scenario? And then so I want you to touch on, how does the law protect this man who's not the biological father to this child? Yeah. And what rights does this man have in comparison to the biological father of the child who already has parental rights?
Yeah, look, essentially, like I said before, what the court looks at is the best interest of the child, right?
Yeah.
So there's a thing called legal adoption, right?
Okay.
That you can exercise. Obviously, one will have to do an application. The situation you're talking about would be a situation where the biological father then comes and say, I want to take away my child because the mother is no longer there. So the father who married the mother, what he can do, he can challenge that, right? To say, I still want this child to stay with me, right? Because it is in the best interest of the child. This child was staying with me in my house, or the primary residence of the child should still vest with me, subject to the father, biological father, having access, right? Because the only thing that changed in the child's life is the fact that the mother passed away. Everything else is still the same. The environment, the school, I'm still taking care of the child as if though it was my own, So the legal adoption route will work in that particular situation, and you fighting to have the child stay with you, to have the primary resident of the child vesting with you.
So I mean, you've been with this child for 20 years, 15 years, or 10 years. So let's say the adoption thing doesn't happen. So are you saying there are no legal protection? So I must adopt. So let's say the adoption did not happen. What is it that the law does? So how is the law going to protect this particular individual in this situation?
So what you then have to do, you have to approach the court to have the primary resident of the child vest with you.
Remain. So where the
child was staying, it must remain there, because removing the child would disturb the child psychologically. Obviously, the social workers or the family advocates, social workers will then have to be brought to do investigations and do a report as to, is this really the best interest of the child? Yeah.
So in light of everything that we've spoken about, and there's a guy watching saying, what's the next step for me? And yes, I want access to my child. Yes, I want visitation rights. Yes, I want to fix things. From a legal point of view, watching this, what would you advise the first step to be? The cost implications of how long is this process? Because I think men want specifics. So sharp. If and then so what is the first thing that I need to do, and how much am I looking at?
Look, it's twofold, right? So the courts, they have a system where you can approach the children's court, right? Because you can approach the children's court, and they will assist you. There's going to be a clerk there. You're doing it yourself. Obviously, you'll queue and all of those kind of stuff. Applications will be filled. They'll help you how to fill. Affidavit will then be written, and the document will then be sent to the mother to come for a specific inquiry. And then after that, they might postpone it to take you and the mother and the child to the social worker, so they can navigate the report as to what would be the best interest of the child, and then the matter will then come back to court, and the clerk will say, this is the report from the social worker. These are the recommendations of the social worker. If you're not happy with the report, then what you then do, you say, okay, let the matter go for trial before a magistrate. Then I can make my point as to why the report, I'm in dispute with the report. So that would be a system where you want to represent yourself, but you can also go to an attorney that will then help you. Obviously, you'll have to pay things like consultations, opening files, and all of those kind of stuff. You are more likely to have positive results with someone that knows the law than you doing it yourself.
Fact.
So I would recommend that you do it with someone, a practitioner that is that's practicing family law. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm gonna throw you under the bus.
Yes.
As we close. Yeah. Well, I think to any man that's watching now, and you honestly want to take a step towards building a relationship with your child.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter how long it has been since you have seen the child.
Yeah.
Since I have my friend here, so the idea to throw him under the bus would say, no consultation for you if you want to fight to have access to your child. How much is your consultation?
Look, the process with us as advocates, remember then I have to be called by an attorney, right? The attorney must hire me. So the attorney must hire me and call me to say there's this client that you have to then come and consult with, right? But it's not expensive. I'm not going to mention
Okay,
it's reasonable.
It's reasonable. Yeah. So I'm saying to our viewers, to the first 5 men that would come up and say, I want to have access to my child.
Yeah.
Email us, inbox us. The details will be shown on the screen, and then we will negotiate your consultation. Yeah. So that you can get the process running in order to fight for your responsibility and your parental rights. But in all that was said, I think the take home is simply this, that you can be protected by the law all you can or all you want. But if there is no willingness in you to want to be there, there's no amount of protection that you can have that will force you to be there. Yeah. So I think in everything, there has to be a willingness, there has to be a desire. And unfortunately, you learn fatherhood by being present. And I think that's what I've learned, that you become a father by being there. We all don't know what we are doing unless we do it. And the more we do it, the better we become at it. So your final closing thoughts, just to wrap up the conversation, in whether it would be advice to men, young boys coming up, final thoughts.
Look, essentially, if you go to the club and you're able to afford a bottle of champagne, you can afford a consultation for a lawyer to fight to be in your child's life. Yeah. You have to prioritize. Look, nobody has money, but you have to prioritize. You're prioritizing other things. Why not prioritize this? Because at the end of the day, we are looking at the future of the country, and the future of the country depends on you shaping your child. I mean, there are people that don't even know that their children are bullies in school because you're not there, you're not available. And some of the reasons they might be bullies is because of you being absent in their life. So I advocate that people be present in their lives, right? In their children's life. And if we can help, we are here. So you call us, then we'll assist and fight the good fight, right?
Yeah. How can people get hold of you?
Yeah, look, what on Instagram is Kgosi Mello, and then we can definitely take it from there. DM me on Instagram. It's a public platform. It's not private. So if you need assistance, or call the podcast and I'll give you my numbers if you really need.
We'll just show the details on the screen.
Thank you so much.
My brothers, you heard it for yourself. Let's do better. I mean, if you're a sister and then your brother, you know that your brother has not seen their child. I think let's start having those conversations.
Yeah.
Whether Umuruti, Waiduri, Leroy Alonga, let's have those conversations. But it honestly doesn't matter how many people come to you and talk to you until you have an awakening and until you have that realization, that self-introspection to say, I think it's been way too long since I've seen my kid. It's been way too long since I picked up the phone just to find out how they are doing. We can do better. The responsibility lies with you. You have the responsibility to pull up your socks and do better. Thank you for joining us. Let's Be Real podcast with myself, Leroy. Until next time, don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, share with your friends. We love you. Thank you for being with us, my good sir.
Thank you so much for the invite, I appreciate it. Yeah.